Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of CRNA School Prep Academy podcast. I'm your host, Jenny Fennell, and welcome back to today's show. Today, we are going to discuss that you got into school, and so now what? I have a lot of students who reach out to me after they gain acceptance, and they question, what should I do now? You know, you work really hard to get into school, and you do all this prep work, and once you get in, while that's an amazing accomplishment, it's kind of left you feeling like there's a void, right? That there's something else you should be doing, could be doing to better prepare yourself. And also, I think a lot of students put an immense amount of pressure on themselves to make sure that they go into school and they do well, right? And I understand I was that way too. And so you naturally, I think the fact that you've already gotten where you are, you're already essentially kind of an overachiever. Let's just be honest, you are, but that's okay. So I think it's hard for us to kind of step back a little bit and kind of slow down essentially, but we're going to talk a little bit about what you can do and some of my recommendations of things that would be well worth your time and efforts. And most people who I think respond to this question, what you're going to hear is to take a vacation, relax, enjoy yourself. And I 100% agree with that advice. But there are also a lot of little tiny things I want to point out that you could be doing that is not going to take up a lot of your time. And if you have 6 to 9 months prior to school, you can easily fit this stuff in. So let's go ahead and dive into what you should be doing once you're accepted into CRNA school. All right. So number one is you really need to start taking in a big, broad view of your finances and really start honing in on little things, meaning look at your credit card debt. Do you have some outstanding debt that you should get rid of? Do you understand the loan process? Have you filled out your FAFSA? That's one of the first things you should actually do, because the earlier you fill out your FAFSA, you're going to be more qualified for different financial aid. However, I hate to kind of be a spoiler alert that grad students don't necessarily qualify for the types of financial aid that undergrad students do. So you're not as likely to receive them, but it's always worth filling that out. It'll definitely help you get the monies you need to cover your living expenses. So please, number one, fill that out early. The sooner the better is not too early to fill it out as soon as you gain acceptance. Okay. So that's number one, really, when it comes to finances. And obviously assessing, again, your debt, what you have outstanding for credit card debt. Now, if you have undergrad debt, like I did, start looking into deferment of that if you need to, or start understanding what your minimum payments are going to be and work that into your budget. If you can continue to pay a minimum payment on your undergrad loans, that would be the best, obviously, because you're not going to be accumulating interest on your previous loans. However, that's not always possible. I myself had to defer my undergrad loans, and it stunk, but it is what it is. I needed that extra, $400 or $500. I think my payments at that time were around $600 a month. I needed that money. So I just wasn't able to continue making my minimum payments. So look into that, because not all private loans actually even allow forbearance. Now, like a lot of my undergrad loans were private loans. I did not get, I had probably, well, I would say almost equal parts government loans, private loans. Luckily, all my private loans allowed forbearance, but some don't. So definitely look into that for sure. Government loans, you're guaranteed to be allowed forbearance for the most part. But that being said, I had issues probably going into my senior year in CRNA school, because one of my private loans, for example, I needed to be a full-time college student to be able to defer them. And based on my credit hours, I dropped below full-time. And so they put my loan out of forbearance. It stressed me out at the time thinking about it, but I had to get a letter from the program director stating that even though my credit hours were such that they were below full-time, that I was in full-time clinical residency. And so therefore I truly was still a full-time student, and they were able to accept that letter, and I moved on from it. But I do remember being stressed about that. So understand that could happen to you if your loan borrower requires you to be a full-time credit student to receive forbearance. But ask for that letter from your program director, you're going to be okay. Other things for financial things is to kind of hone in on your transportation. I don't think a lot of people think of this, especially if you're in a program where you're going to be traveling or commuting very long distances. Make sure you have a reliable piece of transportation, and one that does not just eat up your money with gas. Okay. Like if you have I'm sorry guys, if you got an F-150, you might want to reconsider a different vehicle, or even get like a really affordable commute car and keep your truck and don't drive it back and forth hours to clinical in 1 week. So think about your travel and also how reliable it is. I made it through school with a 12-year-old car. Well, was it 12? I think it was 10. I think my car was 10 at the time I entered school. It was a Nissan Sentra. I had it from the time I was in my undergrad years, and I did have some breakdowns. I did have some maintenance that had to go into that car. So think about that when you're budgeting, knowing how old your car is. What realistically should you set aside to, like, do you need new tires, for example, or like mine had a bad transmission. So just think about those types of things that may come up, and try to budget as much as you can as far as like your emergency nest egg fund that you want to have. And as far as how much emergency funds you should have, this is going to be different for everyone. Obviously, if you have a family, you should probably have a lot more in your emergency fund. If you're single or, relatively healthy, you could probably, not save as much, but you should have some type of cash emergency fund available, or at the very minimum, have credit cards that you can easily charge if you had to in an emergency. I had both of those things. So if I didn't have any cash, I had my credit cards. There are a lot of credit card offers out there if you have good credit, to where you can get like 0% interest for 18 months. So I recommend looking into those options if you need to. 18 months is not going to get you through school, but let's just say you made it halfway through your schooling, or more than halfway through your schooling, and you ran into a pinch. You can take out a 0% interest, pretty much write yourself a check with one of your credit cards and pay 0% interest, and obviously pay the minimums every month to make sure you don't lose that offer. But usually the minimums are like $40, or it's really low, but it'll allow you to get through school. And then, but just time it so that you can afford to make that keep making payments after you do start accruing interest. Meaning if you still have a $4,000 balance and you graduated, now your interest kicks in, you're going to pay for that for a few months until you get your CRNA paycheck. So just be aware of all the ramifications of doing that, but at least could be an option if you have good credit and have those credit lines available. So something to think about. Living arrangements is a big one. Some students have to arrange, either they're moving across country for school, they have to find a new apartment, or, just thinking about maybe cutting back. Do you have an expensive house? Could you potentially sell your house and move into a smaller apartment? I know that's not ideal, but it's just possibly an option for some people. Or could you even move in with your parents? I moved back with my parents for a short period of time when I was visiting, because I would have to commute to class a couple hours. And so I stayed with my parents for the first semester for 3 or 4 nights a week. I was married. I did commute back to where I normally lived with my husband. But it was really nice having that there. And my mom was happy to make me dinner. She didn't do my laundry, but I'll take dinner. So again, thinking about those things ahead of time and trying to arrange for those things to be available for you, maybe even getting a roommate or something to kind of ease the burden of your cost of living. Like, for example, if you have a house that has an extra bedroom, see if you know a classmate who's also going to be local with you, see if you guys can shack up together, to kind of help you guys both afford school. Now, obviously, if you think that's going to be a bad thing, if you know that you need to live by yourself from previous experiences with roommates, well, then you know yourself best. So you obviously want to make sure your living arrangements is still comfortable. You don't want to put someone on your couch. I wouldn't recommend that. But just if you have the option to share, or same with like commuting to class, if you can commute with friends, or friends, but classmates, I highly recommend you do that to save on gas money. But yeah, so the next is, after you've kind of assessed your financing, your living arrangements, traveling, if you have to arrange different places to live, your car, loan options, coming up with a budget and credit cards, the next thing is talk to your support. So this may seem really like, okay, basic, but I promise you, you're not going to regret taking the extra time that you think you might not need to talk to your support. I really think you should tell them what you're afraid of. Tell them what makes you excited about your journey and what you're afraid of. They have to understand where you're coming from, because when you get stressed out and you start freaking out in school, if they don't know any of these things prior, they're gonna be like, well, I don't know why they're so freaking out about this. I have no idea. But if they understand the type of commitment and type of demands that this is going to place on you, both physically and mentally, they're going to be more likely to give you that space when you have your freak out moment, right? So talking about this, like, hey, this is what's going to be expected of me Monday through Friday. This is going to be the time requirements. I'm going to have to work on, I'm going to have to study on the weekends. Sometimes I'm going to sometimes stay late and not be able to pick up the kids. I'm going to have to say no to a lot of extracurricular activities on the weekends. And please don't take it personally. It's not that I don't want to do these things. This is just my priority over the next 3 years. You know, you're spending a lot of time and a lot of money going to school. You have to make sure it's your priority. I mean, gosh forbid you were to get into school and not do well and have to drop out. I mean, nobody wants that. And so therefore you have to let everyone know the answer is going to be no for a while from you until you get through your priority, which is the fact that you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to go back to graduate school and get an education so you have the career of your dreams. So talk to your mom, talk to your grandma, talk to your boyfriend, partner, sister, anyone, everyone that you possibly can. Your friends from high school who sometimes message you, say, hey, I got into CRNA school. This is a big commitment. I promise you, if you do these types of things, even for people you don't talk to very often, when they do occasionally reach out to you and they don't hear back from you, or if you say no to whatever thing they have, or they organize for everyone to do together, they're going to at least have some perspective about why you said no versus taking it personally. Because people will take it personally. Like if you say, no, I can't do that, they're going to be like, oh, that stinks. They don't want to hang out with me. No, it's not that. It's because I'm in grad school and this is my time. This is what I have to do. And so again, if you kind of explain this stuff ahead of time to them, when you do tell them that no, you can then quickly remind them, hey, remember, I told you this is my responsibility for the next 3 years. I told you from the beginning, I'm going to have to say no. And it's not that I want to say no. And so it'll just give them something to kind of fall back on and understand. So have those conversations early on when you get into school. One thing that I really want to point out to you guys that you should do is number 3. That's something that I did not do that I really should have, because holy moly, and all of you really should be honing in on this really, really, please do, is have a wellness plan. The one thing I did manage to do during school is work out. And that was probably my saving grace. You know, I would routinely in undergrad take my nursing notes to the gym and I would study there. That was kind of like how I studied in undergrad. And for whatever reason, that really worked for me as far as it really helped me memorize things. I mean, they say if you physically move your body while you're trying to memorize stuff, you actually memorize it better. And that proved to be true for me and my brain. So anyhow, I did manage to still go to the gym in graduate school, which I think was one of the few things I did that was really, really healthy. Other things that I did not do, though, I didn't manage or cope with my stress well. I didn't understand how to do like breathing techniques or meditation techniques. So I know that sounds, and don't get me wrong, you can't learn to meditate overnight. You can't learn how to breathe overnight. But if you start practicing these things, incorporate into your life right now that you've gained acceptance 6-9 months from now, and practice it as often as you start trying to think about it, put Post-it notes all over your mirror in your bathroom. Take a deep breath today. Take 5 minutes to meditate this morning. Whatever it is, remind yourself to do these things, because the more you incorporate this into your daily activity, your daily routine, the more you're going to be able to handle that immense amount of stress when you're in school. And, you know, me, like I didn't do that. And I started having panic attacks again. Like I had suffered from panic attacks in my undergrad years. But I started suffering from that again in grad school. I also dealt with insomnia. I was not healthy. Like I was, and I think I probably can relate to a lot of students in that realm, because I didn't know how to mentally cope with the mental burden, and I just felt this sense of heaviness on my shoulders all the time. And it's funny now, like as a parent, you know, as a business owner, whatever you want to call it, I still feel that, but I'm much better able to cope with my overwhelmed feelings and start trying to put my place in a place of gratitude versus overwhelm, meaning the sense of overwhelm is coming from the fact that I have a successful business. Therefore, I'm great. I have gratitude for that. So trying to see the feelings of anxiety and overwhelm as positive things, meaning I'm anxious. That's not a good feeling, but let's take it to a place of gratitude. And I'm thankful that I got into grad school. I'm grateful that I got into school, that I have this opportunity. So yes, I feel anxious, but it's because I was given this responsibility that I earned. And so I'm grateful, and trying to rewire your brain to feeling that of those feelings of negative to positive. And I know that sounds crazy, probably. And I thought the same thing, but once I started trying to really practice it, oh my gosh, you guys, like it's amazing. I have my phone go off 7 times a day. That sounds like a lot, but it's every couple hours throughout my workday. And it says, how am I feeling? That's what my alarm says. How am I feeling? And when I first started doing this practice, every time it would go off, I'd say overwhelmed and anxious. That was literally, and this is recently too. So trust me, this is a work in progress. And so if you think you're never going to hone in on these skills, I promise you, it has to become a daily practice. So that was probably about a month and a half ago, I started doing that. Now, when my alarm goes off, more than half the time, I actually don't feel anxious or overwhelmed. I'm busy. I'm busy. And yes, I have a lot to do, but it doesn't feel bad. And so it's because I've trained my brain to think I'm busy because I have a successful business. I'm grateful for that. I don't see it as a negative thing anymore. So I don't feel the negative activity or negative emotion with it. Does that make sense? So have a wellness plan. Start trying to get your mind right. There's a book called The Inside Out. I highly recommend it. There's also one called Grit by Angela Duckworth. Start getting on whatever. I listen to a lot of books on audio. Start trying to find books on audio that really speak to you, that kind of help you deal with your emotional well-being. Okay. And it can be anything that can speak to you. You don't have to do The Inside Out or Grit by Angela Duckworth. There's one called the High Five Habit. It's really good too, by Mel Robbins. Again, start trying to listen to things that will help you understand why this stuff is important to do and practice daily. All right. So number 4 is connect with classmates. This is so important. And now you don't have to know everyone first and last name. I'm not saying that. Obviously, it's going to be a little awkward, like, hey, congratulations, I don't know you, but let's chat, But I encourage you to try to do this if you can. If you can get contact information from any classmates, if you have a roster, whatever it is, reach out via email, see if you can connect with someone via telephone. See if anyone lives nearby. Like if you got into school and you don't know anyone else, see if maybe someone lives down the road from you. You never know, they could. And so connect with that person and do kind of what I suggested earlier. See if you want to arrange a carpool to class or a study session. Maybe you guys can meet every week for a study session together and start planning that now. Or just pick each other's brains on how are you paying for school? How are you, what are you doing to for your living arrangements? Picking their brain on things that you're already doing and seeing what they're doing will help you too. So connect with classmates. That's important. They will be some of your biggest cheerleaders through your program, and you will make lifelong friends out of it. So definitely connect with your classmates. Number 5 is the recommendation that you hear all the time, which is to relax and travel. I hear that a lot. And I think that is important in a sense that you need to just take a breather because you worked so hard to get where you are. You need that space. Like I said, and this goes back to the mental or the wellness plan. You need this space to kind of calm your mind. And I have a lot of students who are just so burnt out from the ICU. Okay. And it is so heartbreaking to hear my students say to me, Jenny, I just can't put anyone else in a body bag. I'm just tired of it. And my heart breaks for you. It really, really does. And I can't even imagine being in the ICU these days. I just can't. It just makes me kind of sick to my stomach even thinking about it. And I truly do feel for you. And what I encourage you to do, if this is you and you need that space from seeing all the suffering and death in the world, ask your program if it would be okay, even if you just remain, like, let's just say you already have 2 years of ICU experience, you get in and you're just burnt out, you want to leave the ICU. See if that's okay. See if that's okay with your program. I encourage you to check with your program though, because some are very, very strict on their requirements as far as remaining full-time up until you start. However, I do think the vast majority of programs understand the burden ICU nurses are taking on, and they don't want to burn out, stressed, mentally unprepared student going into their program either. So if you have really hit your boiling point and you have good experience, and now if you only have 6 months ICU experience, you get accepted, you're going to probably have to stay full time in the ICU. But if you've already have 2-3 years of ICU experience and you get in, you want a break, ask, see if it's possible. Maybe they'll let you stay like PRN in the ICU and you go work in the PACU the rest of the time, or maybe in pre-op, or like, I think I had someone say they went to the dialysis unit where they got to start a lot of IVs. Pick a unit that you'll get some type of experience that will benefit you in CRNA school, and try to sell that to the programs. Like, hey, I'm going to go work in pre-op because I'll get to start a lot of IVs. Whatever your rationale is for picking where you want to work as a little breather room before school, just explain it to them. So make sure you do that for yourself as far as relaxation goes. If that means taking a break from the ICU, if you're able to do so, relax in the sense that, like, once you get in, take at least 2 months to just be like, I'm just going to chill. You know what I mean? Obviously, you're still looking at your finances, living arrangements, talking to support, doing your wellness plan. So you're not doing nothing. But as far as actually studying goes, or just, whatever you, and kind of study mode that you were in prior to getting acceptance, take a break. However, I do think, if you have 9 months, for example, and now you have now you hit the 6-month mark, you're going to start school, or maybe 4-month mark, you're going to start school. I definitely think you could start brushing up on some information, which we're going to touch on in a little bit. Other thing that people always recommend, other than relax, is to travel. And I do think you should take some type of trip. It doesn't have to be expensive. It could be even a local thing. You could go to like a local Airbnb for a weekend, or whatever you can afford, I think you should do. Even if it's like you schedule out a week where you and your partner or a friend or whoever go for like a week long, like go hiking every day for a week or something when the weather is really nice, or just make some plans with friends and family to do something fun before school starts. And also let them know, this goes back to talking to your support, that things are not going to be this way when you start school. So you want to spend time with them now. Spend that time if you can with your friends. Go out to dinner, meet with them, chat about CRNA school and what it's going to be like. And, just spend that time with your friends and family when you can, and let them know the expectation during school is that you're not going to be able to meet with them for dinner once a month like you normally do, or whatever it is. We went to Yosemite before we started school, and that was such an amazing trip. It was amazing. So we made it a budget trip. We commuted back and forth to the park quite a bit, actually, because we stayed at my parents'. They had like a timeshare they let us use. So it wasn't really a super expensive trip other than the food and airfare. The going to the park was relatively inexpensive, and then staying was free. So again, we made it a budget trip, but we made it kind of a bucket list trip as well, on something that we really wanted to do. So do what you can, but I do recommend that. Now let's get to kind of the big one, which is number 5, which is, should you study? Okay. A lot of people are like, well, what can I do to better increase my knowledge so I have an easier time transitioning? And this is a big point that causes people a lot of anxiety, as far as like, they feel like they're not going to be ready. They feel like they're not going to do well in school. They worry about not getting the grades. They understand the immense amount of pressure and requirements to maintain a B average, and they're just scared, right? So when it comes to this is why most people say not to do this, because you can't learn anesthesia out of context, so don't try. I was guilty of this. I bought like a Duke's Anesthesia Secrets book, and I tried reading, and don't get me wrong, like reading things on succinylcholine and like propofol and things like that, that's all worth your time. But trying to understand like desflurane and isoflurane and sevoflurane and blood gas coefficients, no, don't do that, please. That's just total waste of brain space right now. You literally can't start learning that information until you've built your base. And the base and the foundation are really specific chemistry, physics, anatomy, pathophysiology, that then you build in anesthesia concepts on too. Okay. And the reason why, it's hard to say, just go study chem, go study physics and anatomy, pathophysiology, is because the base or the foundation to start learning anesthesia is really specific chemistry and really specific physics and pathophysiology, pharmacology. Pharmacology by far would be the easiest thing for you to study if you really wanted to study at a whim with what you currently have, because you already know what kind of drugs you use in the ICU. You already know sedative drugs and, different sedative drugs. So you can look those ones up and really know those. That would be the easiest thing. Other things that would be probably at your fingertips that you already have are CCRN type material. So whatever, if it's been a while since you've studied for the CCRN, hit those books again. That's always a good place to start if you don't have anything else. So we have kind of recognized this with CRNA School Prep Academy. We have recognized that students really want a refresher on physics, chemistry, anatomy, pathophysiology, especially when it comes to the base foundation for anesthesia. What I can tell you right now, if you're a CRNA School Prep Academy student, that if you hit the learning library, that's anatomy, pathophysiology, and concepts from an anesthesia curriculum. So that's one of the closest ways you can get to learning information you're going to need in school. So again, the learning library in CRNA School Prep Academy. However, we have never taught physics or chemistry. And so we're actually building an SRNA boot camp. Richard Wilson, who's a program faculty of over 11 years, he's an assistant program director. He is our expert contributor to CRNA School Prep Academy. Me and him have been working on this SRNA boot camp for quite some time, but it's finally going to be launched, we think, estimated early February 2022. So stay tuned for that. We're going to be covering like the history of anesthesia, introduction to anesthesia concepts, physics, chemistry, anatomy, pathophysiology, and a little bit of pharmacology, as well as I'm doing like a preoperative assessment, induction of anesthesia, maintenance of anesthesia, emergence of anesthesia, and clinical tips for success. Woo! And also some intro to anesthesia math. So we have a full intro to anesthesia math course inside the CRNA School Prep Academy as well. In case you're already a student, I already do teach anesthesia math inside of the academy. So those things are available at your fingertips. The SRNA bootcamp is going to be kind of a standalone thing, but if you are a CRNA School Prep Academy student, that is going to be included in your membership. So woohoo. So, and also too, for the whole SRNA mentoring, we are launching that in 2022, in January 2022. So we are going to be substantially building the SRNA portion of our mentorship program. So that's also an option. If you're already a CSBA student, you gain acceptance, well, stay with us. We will make sure we have a good mentoring program for you going forward. We're bringing in, we're doing diversity and inclusion sessions. We're doing SRNA Q&A panels. We're also doing clinical case care plan building. We're doing tutoring. We're doing CRNA mentor sessions, mindset sessions, all kinds of stuff. So if you are not familiar with all of those things, definitely check it out. We will be updating our website come the first of the year with all the new things that we're going to be offering. So those are just some things that you guys can think about. But again, as far as studying, I highly recommend at your current fingertips, really focus on drugs and CCRN material. If you're already a CSBA student, definitely check out our learning library and stay tuned for our SRNA bootcamp that's coming soon. And yeah, I think that's really all I have for you guys as far as what to do now that you've gained acceptance. Congratulations. I'm so excited for you. Please keep me posted. I want to hear from you. I love following your journey. So congratulations and cheers to your future. That's so exciting. And I could just feel the energy from you right now. I'm just so proud of you. So cheers to your future. And yeah, keep me posted on how things go. As always, love you guys. Over and out. We'll see you next week.